Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Wednesday video. And well, at this point, he's shown up so many times, I might as well call him my co-host. John Parshall has returned once again. um, and we have an extra special guest. So this is a three-way conversation today as we take another look at the wreck of USS Yorktown. So special guest number two, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the viewers.
Yeah, hey, my name is Seth Paridon. I'm the co-host of the Unauthorized History of the Pacific War podcast. I'm a historian from the United States. Obviously, you can tell by my accent or lack thereof. And
Mhm.
I've been doing this a very long time, and I'm good friends with John. And John's been with us for many, many episodes, and now he's my co-host on said podcast. And we're having a good time going through the Pacific War. We've wrapped up season 4 and stepping back all the way to the beginning of the war, having a good time. So
Mhm.
going through some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you don't know who John Parshall is, what have you been watching this channel?
They know.
There's one half of the author team for Shattered Sword, and by the time this video comes out, you'll also have seen another video about another book that's upcoming in the future on 1942, which is all good. But speaking of things that occurred in 1942, USS Yorktown. I think last time we had a look at this, I described it as the best condition Yorktown class that's still around, sadly.
Yeah,
Um,
sadly true.
but we're so if you could give us just a quick bit of background, what sort of influenced this second dive to Yorktown by ocean exploration?
Well, Noah was going out to that neck of the woods yet again, and some of the folks on the inside of that team basically were like, "Well, if we're close by, can we do another dive on Yorktown? This time with a better ROV that's got better cameras." And part of the incentive there was to do a little more up close work to assess what is her actual condition on the bottom. What have we seen in terms of changes from the last time that she was visited? And so the result was then 2 days worth of dives on her that produced about 10 hours worth of footage.
Hmm.
I ostensibly was part of the official expedition team, but honestly, I had a lot of family complications, whatnot. So I was only present for about 3 of those 10
Hmm.
hours worth of undersea footage, but there's a lot of really cool stuff that came out of it. And then we immediately got a hold of it for
Hmm.
Seth because Seth is far more knowledgeable on this ship than I am. And we just did an episode on this very same set of footage last week on Unauthorized, and we
Hmm.
wanted to do it with you because, strike while the iron's hot.
Exactly. So, well, fortunately for those of you who are now worried, why is this video not have got a 10-hour runtime?
No.
We've got a cut down sort of highlights reel, as it were. So I'm going to now try and bring that up on screen, which with any luck should work. Has that worked?
Sure did.
Awesome. Right. Okay. So this is our highlights reel.
Yeah,
And I will hit play. And obviously, if you want me to fast forward a bit because you know there's a good bit coming up, or pause,
sure.
let me know, and then we'll talk about what we see. So,
Yep. And we're starting off right away looking at an enormous hole in the side of Yorktown. This is the site of one or what might even be two, collated torpedo hits that came in from an aerial attack on her by Lieutenant Hashimoto's second Chutai during the afternoon torpedo attack. And this is the torpedo attack that is going to wreck her engineering spaces and cause her to be abandoned. And yeah, we're looking, as Seth would say, right into her guts at this point.
that's interesting. So, yeah, you can see the twisted metal of the impact, but the fact that this is visible, although obviously you've got the seabed just underneath us here, so that indicates she's actually sitting fairly high in the mud. She's not waterlined like Bismarck is.
Well, she's so when she went down, when she hit the bottom, she immediately listed, if you will, over
Hmm.
to her starboard side, and you'll see that in later portions of this video, you'll see, like, especially when you get to her stern, you'll see she's cocked over to her
Hmm.
starboard side. So this is really, exactly as you were saying, she's really exposed her waterline here, and actually just below it, frankly. And
On
in the
her port side.
video, say again?
On her port side is what we're looking
Correct,
at right now. We're lucky in
correct.
that respect, in that list then brings her up so we can see more of her
Right.
port side.
Exactly. And if you stop it here, you'll see if you look at the bottom of the video there, I mean you can see the metal's just like, it's like a tuna can. It's just
Hmm.
split wide open and just torn to shreds. And that's just the force of the impact there. And something that John and I noticed last week when we were going through this footage, if you look off to the left, you'll see the rivet holes. Well,
Hmm.
where are the
Right.
rivets? They were blown away when the plating was blown inwards. And you can see it's actually just below your cursor there, where the plating is blown inwards into her, well, into her guts, and it just blew the rivets right out of that thing. So, I mean, the force of the concussion of the explosion on this port side of Yorktown was just absolutely devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it, and it's quite noticeable around the site of the impact. We're looking at mostly bare metal, whereas just at the top there, there's actually still some of her original hull paint, which we
Yeah.
noticed on the previous dive further up. A lot of her original paint is in place. So this has obviously either been burned or blown away by the force of the explosion or the resulting fireball and water damage as
Yep.
well.
Yeah. Pretty dramatic stuff, though.
Oh yeah.
As
I
we
mean, this
know,
is the
Japanese aerial torpedoes were pretty effective, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're seeing the results here of two hits from those Type 91s.
Yeah, and this is, to my knowledge, and I think I'm remembering this accurately. Is this the first time we've seen any kind of torpedo damage on any large scale American vessel that was hit by Japanese torpedoes? Because even when we looked at Hornet down, with Petrol, they couldn't see the torpedo damage because she's so far down in the mud line. She's just,
Hmm.
in down below, so you really couldn't see anything. So this is really the first time you get to see exactly how much of a pounding this thing really took here from those torpedoes.
So now the ROV is just basically going right up the port side, and right above that big kaboom
Hmm.
is her hangar deck.
Should I pause it just here then?
You can go a little bit further
Okay.
because this, if I remember correctly, right
Are
after this, John, I think is when we see some
are
stuff in
those
the hangar.
aircrafts hanging from her ceiling?
So go ahead and pause it here. I don't know. I think they may be parts, but I'm
Mm.
not 100% sure because there's archival imagery from the battle,
Hmm.
that was taken inside of her hangar deck, and in the background, admittedly, the pictures are blurry, but you can see what looks like aircraft hanging from her overhead. And as we know, especially in Yorktown class carriers, that's that was a thing. That's what
Hmm.
they did. They stored parts up there. They stored wings, as you're going to see that a little bit later on. They stored props. They stored, you know, landing gear. Whole aircraft. There's pictures. I have a picture from Enterprise, and I think it's early 1941. There's a whole TBD Devastator, suspended in the overhead of the hangar deck. And that's a big airplane. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of storage space in the overhead up there that was put to use. But to answer your question, I'm not 100% sure because they don't, when they go into the hangar deck, they don't
Hmm.
cant the camera up. They don't
Okay.
pan upwards. So we can't
Yeah.
really see, but it's a fair guess to say that it may be remnants of
Mm.
aircraft up there.
Yeah. It's just that second bit looks like further in. It looks a little bit like the tail plane
Hmm.
upside down.
It could be. It very well
Yeah.
could be because when you go in here in a minute, you're going to see
Mm.
some evidence of storage, if you will.
Yeah. This is a real piece of contrast too between the overhead heights in Japanese hangars
Mm.
was a lot lower. They couldn't do this kind of thing, but I forget what the overhead height in a Yorktown class is. 16, 20 feet, something like that. And so yeah, there's a lot more space up here to be stowing stuff, and we did.
I think it's something like 17 or 17 and a half, something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Because I know the Lexingtons were monstrously tall hangars, and the Yorktowns were a little bit less, but still massively beyond, as you said, Japanese or British practice.
Right. Yeah, the Japanese were often like 11, maybe 13 feet, that kind of thing.
That's why the B7 couldn't fit in the existing Japanese carriers. They could only fit Taiho. Well, I think it's the
Oh,
elevators as well for Taiho.
okay. So yeah, now we're going along
Hmm.
the port side here, just kind of peering into her hangar deck.
So was this ROV? I'm taking it was this ROV tethered or not?
It is tethered.
I think
Um,
so.
yeah, but it seemed to have a lot more mobility than the
Hmm.
first sled that they took down there. Because as you're going to see as we go around the other side of the ship, they actually, they go down
Hmm.
into the ship, albeit they come down vertically through the elevator well. But yeah, they seemed the team seemed a lot more confident about being able to maneuver this thing in fairly close as opposed to 2 years ago when they were doing
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, I'm noticing there's not really all that much up and down bounce, which we saw with the last one from the sea
Also
swell.
true. Yeah.
It's strange though, because actually, when we get into later some of this later footage, when we get inside the hangar deck, there is like
Hmm.
she starts to, if you remember, John, she kind of bounces around a bit, and it's weird because it's inside the ship where you wouldn't
Right.
expect to see that kind of action going on.
Yeah. It all has to do with the sea states up above, because all of that motion from the ship gets transferred down the tether cable 17,000 feet or thereabouts. Yeah, down to the ROV. Super cool footage. So high def.
Yeah,
And it, just amazing to have this stuff being piped into your study, and we don't have to be out on the ship anymore to get this kind of stuff.
there's
Which is
some
probably a good thing because
cabling.
they're out there for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose
You can
that's the one
go
thing.
ahead and pause it.
Midway's far enough away, isn't it? It's not near anything.
Go ahead and
Yeah.
pause it, Alex, right here.
Yep.
Right there. Okay. We pointed this out last time. If you look in your upper right hand, right there,
Hmm.
I call it a garage door because that's what it reminds me of. But this is
Roller
part of the
screen.
reason. Yeah, this is part of the reason that the Yorktown didn't go kablooey when
Hmm.
she got hit, is because, she took hits that wound up going off and setting fires inside of her hangar deck. Obviously, her DC parties responded rapidly and doused a lot of that fire, or at least at the very least got it under control. But her hangar deck was open to the air. And, unlike most of the Japanese carriers, as John can say, and Lexington too, for that matter, the hangar decks were a little more enclosed, whereas the Yorktown class carriers, they rolled these doors up all the time, for many reasons, not the least of which is damage control and, just airflow because it's friggin' hot in there. And if you see as they're going down through different shots on both port and starboard, all these roller doors are open. They're all open, and those weren't opened by the salvage party or anything like that. They were wide open, and you'll see it in archival imagery of the ship as she's dead in the water. I think there might be one or two that are closed up forward,
Yeah.
but most of them are open. Amidships, astern, all the way to the back.
Yeah. Which means that the blast over pressure from those bomb hits, is vented much more cleanly outside the ship rather than deforming the ship's structure, which is what happened to the Japanese carriers.
Yeah, and it allows potential leaks from aviation fuel to vent out into the open air rather than building
Yeah.
up to fuel air
Right.
explosive levels.
Correct. Yeah. With the Japanese carriers, you get the effect of putting a firecracker in a can, and it just
Mm.
blew them to pieces. What
So
are we
what
seeing
we're
here?
Ah,
yeah,
that's
what we're doing now is we're zooming into what they something caught their eye, and it's
a
pretty evident what it
roundel.
is.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a rondelle on the wing. I don't know if it's the top side or the underside of the wing, but and you get a little better shot of it here in a minute. It does get a little clearer,
Mm.
but it's a very blunt end of a wing. We don't think, John and I, when we were talking about, we don't think that it was broken off or anything like that. This is probably one of the wings that were stored in the overhead, and it's probably from a Wildcat or for a Wildcat for an F4F. And you can see the pre-midway rondelle. Yeah, here it comes. Yeah, this is a pretty good shot of it right here. Bam. Yeah, you can see it.
Mhm.
It's rather skinny, in terms of, it's a narrow wing. It's got a flat end.
Mm.
So there's only one aircraft that was aboard Yorktown that had that type of wing. TBD was big, wide, had corrugated steel or corrugated aluminum on it, and SBD had a rounded tip. The Wildcat, of course, had the blunt end, so I'm pretty sure that's an F4F wing
Yeah, for sure.
or part of one, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely see the rondelle
Yeah.
right there.
But obviously, people have to bear in mind, this is way, 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 way down in the Pacific. So there is no natural light. So every bit of light they're getting is from the lights on the ROV.
Yeah.
So if you're looking into the hangar, that's yeah, that's it. I wonder what those are.
Um, I don't know.
Random
But it
bits.
made the highlight reel anyway.
It did
Yeah.
because I thought it looked cool. I think it's just aircraft junk is what that stuff was. I really do. I think it
The
might have been
technical
pieces
term.
of wings and
Yeah.
things like that.
Here we are alongside again. I love these kind of uh, pressure vessels of some sort. Don't know what they're for.
Mm.
Could be
Yeah,
air, could be CO2, could be I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of think I think it might be some form of gas for sure, a pressurized gas,
Sure.
either like you said, CO2 or air, but
Oxygen. Yeah.
yeah, something like that. Because I mean, they're obviously, tanked. You can see the lines running to and from, and I mean, they're undeformed, which means that they can hold a heck of a lot of pressure. So, and of course,
Mm.
there's a ton of pressure where the ship is there, so nothing's like blown in or beaten in or anything like that.
Got
Yeah.
some gauges above them as well.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, there's pure speculation on my part just looking at them. I wonder if maybe those are part of the CO2 system for filling the avgas lines that was installed after Coral Sea.
Yeah, that was kind of my take too. Although I don't even know that they installed anything new to be able to do that.
Mm.
The accounts that we have on that seem to indicate that the fuel officer, Oscar Meyer was his name,
Mm.
just like, well, we could do this. And my sense was that he felt that they could do it just using the existing equipment that was already on the ship because they didn't have a real long time, obviously, in the dockyard before they go up to Midway. It's
Yeah.
72 hours. This is really cool here.
This is cool. Go ahead and pause it here.
Hmm.
Um, so what you're looking at here, that open hatch right there,
Hmm.
immediately to your right, it's been hypothesized, and I did a little checking after the fact, after we recorded last week, and that is the location of Admiral Fletcher's sea cabin. So that open hatch immediately to the right of the screen right there, that is where Admiral Fletcher was. Now, one of the two torpedoes that Yorktown took exploded directly beneath this location, and if you look, you see that walkway
Hmm.
that that's like bent up right here, right
Yeah.
in front. I'm pointing with my fingers. I do this
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time, like you can see me, but yeah,
Yeah.
but it's there's archival footage of archival imagery of a catwalk that's directly above on the side of the flight deck right here, right above where this is, and that catwalk is just straight up in the air, blam. I mean, because the force of the water plume just went and blew everything straight up. And I'm pretty sure that's what deformed that catwalk that you're looking at that leads right there to Fletcher's sea cabin
Yeah.
is the flag quarters there is that same plume of water deformed that and blew the catwalk that was on the flight deck completely up at like almost 180 degrees, just straight up in the air. So the torpedo hit is directly, one of them is
Mm.
directly beneath where we are right now. And this is one, two, three decks. Of course, you got the flight deck, the gallery deck, another deck, and
Mm.
then just below it is the hangar because you can see one of the roller doors are part of it anyway.
Yeah. And to be clear, Fletcher was actually on the bridge at the time, but yeah,
Yeah.
nowadays we would say that that's the entrance to flag country. And you see this on
Mm.
modern carriers as well, that typically in this neck of the woods, under the gallery deck level, there will be a section that is reserved for the admiral and his staff.
Well, he's not going back to get personal effects by that route then.
No.
So now we're
Mm.
looking down on the flight deck
Mhm.
itself. And yeah, so the little gizmo that we just zoomed past, I think
Mhm.
they're going to zoom back out. Maybe not. You back
Mhm.
up a little bit
There we go.
Right there, right
there.
there.
That, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Seth.
So what that little triangular thing,
Hmm.
there, we think, and pretty sure we're right, is basically a space saver for the flight deck when they're parking aircraft on the flight deck. That would stick out over the side of the flight deck, and the tail wheel of a Dauntless
Mm.
or a Wildcat or I've never seen TVDs, but I would imagine they could do it too, would push back on that, and the tail of the aircraft would actually hang over. It would
Hmm.
be suspended over the water,
An
and it doesn't.
outrigger.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, and it doesn't look that big, but it is. That thing's like 10 or 12 feet long ish. And, I mean, 10 or 12 feet on a flight deck is a lot of space. And you see pictures. There's archival imagery, Yorktown class carriers doing the same, doing this thing a lot,
Mm.
to save deck space. Pretty sure that's what that is because you see another one later on. It's a different one, but you do see another one later on very, very briefly. But we're pretty sure that's what that is.
Yeah, that makes sense. In my recent series, I've started charting the history of the Enterprise. One of the bits of archival footage I use from the Marshall and Gilbert's raids actually shows one of these in use.
Mm,
And someone was like, "You're showing footage of Wasp with her like dinky little side-mounted
yeah,
elevator."
right.
And like, no, 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 that's just as you say, just an outrigger.
Yeah.
And the wood is still there for in part at least,
Yeah.
Yeah,
timber
her
for the flight deck.
Go ahead, Seth. Tell them that story about Douglas fir.
yeah, you can go ahead and pause this because this was, John and I always, we call ourselves nerds and, we
Hmm.
nerd out on different things here and there. And as he puts it, we're part of the nerderati.
Hmm.
Well, like I said in the episode that we recorded on this footage, there were some other nerds that were involved in this program that were inc like these are the guys I'd like to hang out and have a beer with because
Hmm.
as they're zooming through here, one of the scientists that was on board or part of the expedition or whatever, like, had a ooh 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 moment because he recognized the graining of the wood as Douglas fir. And of course, Yorktown class carriers, Enterprise Hornet and Yorktown, their flight decks were made of Douglas fir. And I was telling John, I said, a nerd that can spot the graining of the wood 80 years on and immediately say that
17,000.
that's Douglas fir. It's like, that's my kind of dude.
Yeah,
I like that guy. I don't know who he is, but I like that guy. He was cool.
and then you can also see obviously the tie downs on the flight deck there too.
Mm.
Yeah, for securing the aircraft. That strip.
There we go.
Yeah.
Some of the local wildlife swimming past.
They got some really cool looking creatures that swim past. If you look at the unedited footage, there's some really
Mm.
neat little like almost like space alien looking things that kind of
Yeah.
just, make their presence known.
So where we are now, we're sort of hovering over the flight deck,
Hmm.
looking to the inside portion of Yorktown's superstructure. So this is the port side of her island,
Hmm.
and we're starting to look at the this is the air control station that we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
See all the windows are pretty much blown out, but you can see the
Hmm.
windows on the top there are raised, uh, probably for ventilation purposes because you're sitting inside this glass,
Yeah.
glass house, if you will. So
Very similar to the station they stuck on the roughly the same position on the Midway's island.
yes, yep, yep. I was in that just a couple months ago. So pause here. So we're looking now at the port side of her funnel structure, and as we were just freaking out on this. Just look at the degradation of the metal here. And this is
Mm.
all a result of the bomb hit that takes the intakes for the boilers offline, and then there's all this smoke and superheated steam and whatnot being vented up through the funnel here. And the result is that the metal is just incredibly degraded.
Yeah. And it was never particularly thick to begin with.
Yeah.
But it's
Is it?
amazing though if you look at it, like right above there, as the camera's
Mm.
moving to your right, that's a searchlight platform,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
and to the left of over here in the left screen, that's
Mm.
where her searchlights, and that's in perfect condition. Like, I mean, it's absolutely perfect, and yet it's, you know, attached, if you will, to this melted steel, for lack of a better term. So it's weird how that, that heat didn't transfer, I guess is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
or at least not very much.
You can see some of the funnel trunking inside where some of that plating's gone away.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just striking. A lot of the metal and the paint on the other portions of the ship, of course, are in really good
Hmm.
shape. But yeah, this funnel is just like it's falling to pieces at this point. And there's been, I think, some degradation even between when we saw it 2 years ago and when we're seeing it now. And it's certainly
Mm.
very badly degraded from when the first footage of it was taken during the 1998 expedition that initially located Yorktown. One of the cool things about this particular expedition is that one of the experts that they had doing the real-time commentary was Chuck Haberline,
Hmm.
who was the longtime photo curator at the Washington Navy Yard. All of the online photos that are still part of the History and Heritage Command, Chuck put those
Hmm.
back up in the day. And he was along with Bob Ballard during the initial expedition that located the ship. And Chuck really knows Yorktown has forgotten more than I will ever know. So it was really neat to be able to hear him in real time and get his comments on all this.
And
So
coming
here
back
we are.
past air control.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You've got those kind of big white, almost sponge-like incrustations just showing up in odd places. I think last time we looked at the dive footage, there was some growing over one of the 20 mm installations.
Yes. Yeah, and some of that seems to be due to different types of metals because the gun stands. Okay, so this is neat if you pause here. The one remaining piece of window, you can see it in that frame, just in the
Hmm.
upper left corner there. Has the one piece of glass that is, still
Still intact.
still intact. But yeah, it seems that there's differential corrosion going on in some of the metals because the stands for I believe the 50 caliber machine guns in
Yes.
particular are just being just gobbled up with this whitish kind of goo. And I think the hypothesis is that is maybe has some magnesium in it or something like that because we're looking at here's one of those 50 caliber water
Mm.
cooled Brownings.
Yeah, it looks very different from a regular M2.
Yeah.
Yeah. These were all water cooled. And some of the archival footage, well, the only archival footage that's shot aboard Yorktown during the battle, by Bill Roy, who was the combat cameraman aboard Yorktown, or photographers made. Right. Go ahead and pause it here, Alex. We can get to this in a
Hmm.
second, but um, when you'll see shots, he's behind one of the gunners, and it very well may be up in this general vicinity because he stationed himself, with the exception of after when when she's hit by the bombs plural. Yeah, he goes down on the flight deck, but before that, he's up on the signal bridge of Yorktown the entire time. So he very well may have been near or behind some of these gunners up here, who would have been Marines up here, by the way. And
Hmm.
when he's got a shot of one of these cats opening fire with one of these 50s, and you can see the water spitting out of one of the, I guess, tubes, or what, lack of a better term, on the 50 caliber here. But what's interesting about this particular weapon here is they zoom in as the footage will go on.
Hmm.
You'll notice, if you look close, there are shrapnel holes in the water jacket.
Yeah,
Right
there's
there.
one just here, top center.
Got it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So whomever was standing behind this weapon, yeah,
There's
there's
one.
another one
There.
right there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
More than likely got perforated by some of that very same shrapnel, which is, rather haunting when you think about it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, this is a good shot of it here.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
believe I believe we came to the conclusion that she still had 20 of these, 18 or
Yeah.
20 of these still
Mm.
aboard her from Midway. Yorktown had a mixture of 50s and 20s. when she went out to sea for Midway. And the reason for that was, like John was saying, they probably just didn't have enough 20s to put all on her at that time because it was the new hotness, and
Volunteer.
she just wasn't there long enough to get all that material installed.
Yeah.
And so she went out with a hodgepodge of 50s and 20s, as opposed to Lexington. When Lexington goes out for Coral Sea, she'd just been in the yard, what, three weeks earlier, 4 weeks earlier,
Mm.
having her 8-inch guns yanked off, and they took all of her, well, most of her 50s off, and they threw every 20 available aboard her. So she's, rife with Ehrlichans, and she goes down
Yeah.
to Coral Sea as opposed to Yorktown here.
Yeah, we were kind of hypothesizing that, probably one of these situations where Yorktown gets back to Pearl, I believe, on 25 May, and she's going to be leaving again, on the 27th. And, they probably just went to the warehouse and are like, give me all the 20s you got, we're going to weld
Yeah.
them up, wherever we can put them. And there weren't enough. So yeah, she does have this interesting mixture of 50 caliber and 20s. This is her fire control director that we're seeing here.
Hmm.
And you can see it's obviously canted over. That is probably the result of her sinking, because of course at her sinking she rolls completely over, goes inverted, and then flips back over when she's in the water column coming down to the bottom, because the images that we have of the ship before she leaves the surface, this fire control director on top of her island
Hmm.
is perfectly intact.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how much stuff is still intact, given the fact, yeah, that she went completely
Mm.
inverted and then fell, through the 17,000 foot water column. You can advance if you want,
Yeah.
but
And
we're
this
going to
would have been
see
the
things. Go ahead.
okay, this would have been the point of maximum rotation. So
Torque.
yeah, so
Yep.
no, oh, it's a 50 cal ammo box.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. You got
Mhm.
it. Isn't that cool? And you can still read the writing on it too.
Yeah.
And the camera on this thing is it's just bazonkers. It's so cool.
Ready service 50 cal
Yeah.
mag. Good
Isn't
grief.
that amazing?
And there's the bridge itself.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Enterprise grabbed a whole bunch of 20 mil when Enterprise and Hornet came back from the Doolittle raid as well. So Yorktown would have really
Pause here.
lucked out.
Couple of things to note if you pause.
Hmm.
Um, you can see the voice tube there on the side of the, just out on the
Hmm.
bridge wing. And again, this sort of differential corrosion that seems to be happening on, whatever the stand was for that. Maybe it was windlass, maybe it was binoculars. I don't know. I don't have plans of the ship sitting in my lap, but pretty interesting. Kind of
Yeah, I
cool to
don't.
think. Go ahead, Seth.
No, I was gonna say I still don't know because I tried looking it up again in preparation for today to figure out what the heck was there. And
Yeah,
I still don't know what the heck was there. I have no earthly clue what the heck that was. I mean, clearly it's a mount of some sort, and I don't
yeah,
believe it to be an automatic weapon because it would more than likely still be there. Um, but I don't know what that was, and I would imagine Enterprise probably had, and Hornet 2 for that matter, probably had that same setup. But I don't know. I frankly don't know. I don't
mhm,
know what the heck that thing is. There's
yeah,
binoculars right there, Alex. If you got the cursor on it.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
just
Right there. That's a
mm.
lookout station, is essentially what that is.
Right.
That's a pair of binocs right there.
And whatever this was obviously. I mean, you say obviously, but given the voice tubes are right there, you judge it's fairly important. Whoever's there is supposed to be able to either report something that they've seen using this thing or be told to look at something. So
Yeah,
yeah, that lends more credence to it being some kind of spotting device rather than a gun of some description.
yeah.
Yeah, I just noticed the binoculars down there in the bottom of that
Hmm.
window. That's actually really cool.
Oh yeah, this is the ship's bell,
Oh yeah,
right?
engraving's still good on it.
Yeah. And you can see the lanyard, going back into the bridge itself. You pull on the
Oh
clapper.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
How deep down is she?
Like 17,000 or something like
Yeah.
that. Maybe 15. I don't know. Way down there. I mean, you know, the Japanese carriers are down at 17 to
Mm.
18, so it's deep. Looking right down on the top of her bridge, air control station, and all that.
I believe these, again, I'm pretty sure these were lookout stations right here,
That would make sense.
Mm.
being up in the high point like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking with that fire control rangefinder station. Yeah, it makes sense at maximum torque it would have twisted off because when I was on the New Jersey and Dr. Scholes was pointing out just how heavy those things were,
Mm,
even when mounted on a battleship because of all the optical equipment and
right.
controls. That's the horn.
Yep. The ship's horn as we're going past the funnel structure yet again. A little higher up this time. Can see that sort of sloped forward edge to the funnel structure that leads down then to the deck between the funnel and the bridge.
Mm.
So now here we are down on the flight deck again. You can see some of the tie down strips, and then this would be an expansion joint on the
Mm.
flight deck apparently. Of course, when we're doing all of this, there's a full scientific team on the boat as well,
Yeah.
and all of them were really jazzed about the various types of anemones and tube worm colonies that were down on the fantail and all that. It was pretty cool.
This looks like a bit of a mess.
Yeah,
Yes, so we're on the after end of the superstructure here.
Hmm.
That big column you're
that'd be
looking at
awesome.
right in the middle of the screen
Hmm.
is the crane, is the boat crane, plane crane, whatever crane.
Hmm.
And directly behind it and below it is a 1.1 right there, exactly.
Yeah,
And what's interesting is we noted this in our episode when we did this very same thing is that the crane, if you look at archival imagery, from June the 4th, the crane hasn't moved. It's in exactly the same position it was when the ship was above water. Um, it didn't swing, it didn't go up, it didn't go down. It's in exactly the same position. And so's the 1-1. The 1-1 was, canted straight up for obvious reasons because she's,
Hmm.
shooting at Japanese dive bombers. And you're going to get a better shot of that 1-1 in a minute. We can talk about that in a second. But
yeah. There's a second 1-1 battery kind of right behind the crane, i.e., to the left of the crane as we're looking at it. We're kind of zooming
Hmm.
in. You can see the box magazines just zoomed up over it.
this is in remarkable condition here, frankly.
Yeah, that would not have been my ideal duty station on perched on top of the crane.
No.
Mhm.
At least it's better than Texas's ones. They put a couple of 3-inch AA guns on top at one
Right.
point early on as
Yeah,
a
you can see
ladder.
the boom of the crane is
Mm.
direct, yeah, right there. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And the 1.1 that John's talking about is directly underneath it. It's almost on top of it right there.
Yeah, that's coming into view just on the bottom right there. Slightly bent, but one of the barrels.
Yes. So just for the sake of our audience,
Mm.
quick reprise of the dive bomber attack that the ship undergoes. Lieutenant Kobayashi from Hiryu is launched right after the dive bomber attack. He takes off at 11 o'clock in the morning. He heads out with 18 dive bombers and 6 fighters and escort. The fighters get tied up shooting up some of our SPDs, and they're not present. This is a great shot of that 1-1 again.
Yeah, you can go ahead and pause it here too, by the way.
Yeah, pause it.
Hmm.
So the dive bombers come into contact with our combat air patrol because we have radar, yay team. And the end result is that of those 18 dive bombers, only 7 of them end up making attacks on the Yorktown. The first 2 of them, we don't know the identities of the guys who were in the cockpit because both of them were shot down. But the lead plane in that group drops an HE bomb with instantaneous fusing. The doctrine was that for every shotai of 3 bombers, you would have 1 plane loaded up with HE to do suppression of anti-aircraft batteries, and the other 2 would be loaded up with what they called common, which were sort of semi-AP types of bombs, and those were the planes that were going to be doing the actual damage to the ship. So the first plane that went into the dive was carrying one of those HE weapons and drops it, and it lands right behind these 2 1.1-inch gun tubs and just slaughtered the crews. So that's the first hit against the vessel. Second plane is shot down. The third plane was piloted by a guy named Tsuchiya, which is a near miss. And then you get another group from the second Chutai of this organization that come in. 4 guys, Matsumoto, Nakagawa, just to keep things confusing, and a guy named Seo. And the results from those latter 4 planes are going to be a near miss, a hit that is going to do all that damage to the boiler uptakes, another hit on the forward elevator, and then a final near miss. So of those 7 planes that dove on Yorktown, you get 3 hits and 3 near misses. That's pretty respectable. This was definitely the A team, but this first hit here is really pretty poignant because of what it does to the gun crews, and to be able to actually look at this particular 1.1-inch battery and know what happened here, it tugs at your heartstrings for sure.
It certainly does. So this is Mount 4. That's 1.1 Mount number 4. Number 3 is the one that's directly to our left here, right in front of the crane. So according to her damage report, 12 men were killed in that gun mount right in front of you right now. 5 men were killed in Mount 3, and wounding 4 more on Mount 4 and 14 on Mount 3. But 12 men were killed exactly where exactly that camera is pointed at right now. And another story quickly I'll tell is that the archival footage of Yorktown at Midway is, as I said earlier, was all shot by a guy named Bill Roy, William G. Roy.
Yeah.
And he was up in the signal bridge, and then after she's hit by the bombs, he makes his way down to the flight deck, and he takes shots of like the superstructure, with the smoke just belching out of her funnel, and in the hole in the flight deck as the guys are throwing, planking over the top of it trying to patch it, and then he pans across and he shoots this 1-1. And I mean, there's bodies scattered everywhere, all over the flight deck, and
Pieces of bodies.
pieces of bodies, yes.
Yeah.
And
It's
there's a shot of a man, or what's left of a man, sitting in the left-hand seat of the 1.1, the trainer, and it's only his lower half. Like everything above the waist is gone. Literally, it's not there. It's just, his hips and his legs are sitting in there. And when I interviewed Bill, I showed him that footage, and I, made sure he wanted to see it, and he confirmed multiple times. And when he saw that, he grew deadly silent, and he told me then that was the first time he'd seen that footage since the day he shot it. It was very, very poignant moment, very touching moment, frankly. But yeah, there 12 American sailors were killed right there, right in front of you, right what we're looking at right now. And I mean, it just obliterated them. I mean, it's just wiped them out.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of see some of that on that gun mounting, really, because it's a 1.1-inch barrel. They don't bend easily.
Right.
And that starboard gun's just been canted over about 20 degrees.
Yeah.
So that's got to have been, well, it's probably not the blast itself, because otherwise the others would be bent, but it's probably been smacked by a bit of heavy shrapnel or a fragment coming off of the blast.
And if you look at the shield around the mount that we're looking directly at right there, I'm not 100% sure because they don't get terribly close, but just because there's a void there, that usually means that there's a hole there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and guess by that oblong, weird looking shape that's shrapnel that just went right through that shield.
Through. Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
And there's actually, you see 2 more, what I think are 2 more directly beneath it.
Yeah, it's interesting. On that same piece of footage, you can see a brief clip of one of the dive bombers coming in and taking hits from the AA, and eventually her wing folds up and, out of the frame she goes.
Mm.
And it seems to me that it was probably one of those two first aircraft. In fact, it might have been the aircraft that deposits this bomb. And the thing that struck me about that, Seth, was just how close that plane got.
Yeah. Yeah. Very close.
Yeah.
Incredibly close. I mean, close enough where you could see it clear as a bell. You could see the non-retractable gear. There's no question that it's a dive bomber. It's a Val. And, I mean, that thing, when it gets hit in that port wing edge, if I remember correctly,
That's correct.
and she just kind of folds over like a paper airplane. Oh, you can
Yeah.
pause it here.
Mm.
When she just folds over, I mean, it just disintegrates right over the, because again, that's where Bill was. He was up, probably not far from where the damaged 50 cal was, filming
Mm.
all that, because
Right.
you can see her signal lines. You can see her lines
Yes.
in that footage, where she's raising her signal flags. So on her tripod mast. But yeah, I
It's
mean, it
really,
was stupid
it's,
close.
yeah, sort of a miracle that that plane didn't hit the ship.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
don't I
I'm
don't
just
have a
thinking
record
how
of
that
how close.
compares and contrasts with Coral Sea, because obviously Shikaku and Zuikaku get stick from their own side for being like the youngsters, the not very
hmm
well trained.
yeah,
And when you have the attack on Yorktown, then you've got well over a dozen dive bombers, but they only get that one hit that somewhat messes up her power plant at Coral Sea. Whereas, as you point out, like
hmm
this is like half as many dive bombers, three times as many hits. So
yep,
perhaps there was actually something in all the ribbing that the Japanese gave Shikaku and Zuikaku's air groups.
yeah. No, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. I mean, Kobayashi from Hiryu. Carrier Division 2 was commonly accorded the status of being, the hot stick pilots in all of Kita. Okay, Carrier Division 1, obviously very experienced, and I would say that the torpedo squadron on Akagi was probably the best in the world. But this particular dive bomber squadron here off of here, these guys were all real pros. And only
Mm.
5 of them are going to make it back to Hiryu after this attack. So 5 out of 18. So this is
This is
super
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
This is just cool.
It's going to make Travis jealous.
Yeah. Who's Travis?
Sorry,
Yeah, I was gonna
he's
say who's
one of what
Travis.
curator on Texas.
Oh, okay.
Because they've restored a similar kind of map
Yeah.
on Texas that they found in Officer Country, but this one's actually in better condition than
And
the
way
Texas
bigger
one was
too.
before restoration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
this
yeah,
this
this
is
go
really.
ahead, Seth.
I was just gonna say. I mean, I
Mm,
still I've seen this now half a dozen times, and I'm still just going like, wow, this is
mm,
freaking cool. I mean, like we said before, this is hand painted. I mean, this is true art. And when they're going to zoom in a couple minutes here on some of the
The
details, if
detailed
you will, and
filigree
it's
around the side.
oh
How big
man.
is this thing, Seth?
I don't know, man. It's pretty dang good size, though. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say it's, as long or longer than an aircraft. And I say that because the only known, and there may be more, but the only known archival image of this thing before, oh, wow, you can pause it right here.
Yeah.
Look at that. You got the compass
Obviously,
rose and just
yeah.
incredible.
All hand painted,
mm.
hand lettered. As you said, this was some guy's duty for quite a while. This was not an afternoon's worth of painting, He's
Anew.
one
Anew.
or two people or however many were involved with this thing for days and days and days putting this all together. It's beautiful.
But going
Anyway,
back to the
yeah, how big?
length, I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume that it's probably a good 18 feet, 20 feet long. And the
Right.
reason I say this is because the only known, quote, air quotes, known archival image of this thing, of this mural, is it's in the background of an image of Tom Cheek's F4F that's upside down inside the hangar deck,
hmm
um, shot on the June the 4th. And you can see this thing in the background, and it's, if you compare the size and the angle, it's about as long or maybe a little bit longer than an
Right.
F4F. So, I mean, it's pretty good size. It's pretty
Right.
good size.
and yeah, slapped on one of the hangar deck bulkheads here. And we're zooming in on the silhouette of you. Go ahead and pause here.
There you go.
Yeah, so this is a neat detail. Seth, go,
Yeah,
because
this
you
is
knew about
freaking
this and I
cool.
sure didn't.
This is freaking cool. So you can tell that this was painted pre-war,
Mhm.
and it's you can tell because of this very silhouette right here of Yorktown. If you look on her funnel here on the painting, it's got the black Y on it.
Mhm.
And of course, that was done, I want to say in either late 38 or early 1939. And the reason it was done is because from sea level, Yorktown and Enterprise were identical. They were absolutely identical. Their silhouettes were the same. They had, they wore the same, paint scheme. Everything was identical. And the only way to identify Yorktown from sea level was they painted this big black Y on her funnel on both sides. And now from above, they had the flight decks marked on all American carriers at that time. Enterprise had, I think, EN on her stern, and Yorktown had YKTN on her stern. But again, you can't see that when you're riding a destroyer, but but you can see that big black Y when you're riding on a destroyer, and that'll give you an indication as to roughly when this thing was painted, which would have been, as I say, late 38, early 39, mid 39, something like that. Definitely pre-World War II era, though, for sure.
Yeah, it could be kind of like the big black stripe on the Saratoga's funnel
Correct.
to distinguish
Correct.
it from Lexington.
Exactly. Exactly.
Ooh, we're in the hangar.
Yeah.
So what they did, they went down elevator, or her stern, her after elevator is where they went down, dropped in. I don't remember, John, maybe you do it, if her elevator's still up forward or not. I don't know. They
I
never did
don't
go
know.
down that way, to my knowledge. But yeah, we're down here at this is her after elevator. Those round things on the hangar deck floor down there, those
Mhm.
are lights. Those are like the lights you had in your gym in high school. That's all they are. They're hanger lights, but they're everywhere too. You'll see them later on. They're all over the place.
There's a suitcase or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I don't know
Or a
what
fuel
that
tank.
is.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
Yeah,
probably a fuel
yeah, of
tank.
your fuel tank. There's a bit of a wing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
That's right.
and this is neat as hell. This is really cool. So you get a better shot of it here in a minute. Um, Again, there was conversation as to what kind of a wing. There we go. That's beautiful. You can pause it there. So
There
this
we
is
are.
definitely a Devastator. It's definitely
Mhm.
a wing from a TBD. You can see the corrugated aluminum on the wing surface, the upper wing surface there, and you can see the structure of the wing right there in the middle. Um, and as I termed a new navy paint color, that's baby puke green. The primer
Mhm.
it's on the inside of the wing, and if you
Right.
look at the top side, or what I assume to be the top side, or it could even be the underside of the wing, there's yellow paint, and that is definitely yellow. That's not primer. It is a yellow paint, and it's a TBD wing for sure, and it's a pre-war wing. If you look at those pre-war U.S. Navy TBDs, especially in all their vibrant color, their wings were yellow. And this, whether this came from Yorktown's, VT-5 or VT-6, it doesn't matter. There were only, what, John, would you say last week, like 120 TBDs ever
Yeah, it's
made or something?
about 100. They made about 140 of these aircraft. So this is not, not a very
Yeah.
widely produced plane.
No, and I mean, they're grabbing parts wherever they can, and I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, why didn't they paint it? Because they didn't care. They didn't need to paint it right then. They would have painted it if they'd have needed to slap it on an airplane, but they were grabbing whatever spare they could part and stowing it. This would have been one of those things that were stowed in the overhead on Yorktown, that in their
Mm.
hangar deck that made its way to the deck. But yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was super cool with that yellow paint on the top or the
Mhm.
bottom of the wing right there.
Yeah, there's some very vivid photos taken by a Time Life photographer from just pre-war, showing
Mhm.
some of the pre-war air group with all the yellow paint on it. Because yeah, you can see it's not that it's been painted over and the paint
Yeah.
has come away.
Right. Yeah, I totally geeked out over that. I nerded out over that one big time.
Mm. Speaking of paint, this lot's bubbling.
Yeah. So this is
So
yet more. Yeah, go ahead,
go ahead.
Seth.
No, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
No, I was this is taken from the section of the hangar where there was a fire,
Hmm.
and you could see the bubbling on the paint as a result of all of that. Yeah, sort of akin again to what was going on in the funnel as well. You've got these really high temperatures, and yeah, they do bad things to metal and they do bad things to paint.
Yeah, and it's just been set as the ship's gone under. It's
Right.
still like that. Ah, gun gallery.
Yes, sir.
So this is still on her port side. We're near her stern now, really close to the after edge of the flight deck. Um, yeah, I believe are these the 20s? I can't really see them in frame where I'm. Yeah,
Yes, they are.
yeah. So
I
those are
think.
the Ehrlichans. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Can't really.
a little far away, but
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
These
that's an
Ehrlichans.
Orlican.
Yeah,
yeah.
no question. So when I was looking at the arrangement of her anti-aircraft weaponry, it kind of looked like they staggered the 20s and the 50s along her
Mm,
flight deck edge. They looked like they tried to put as many 20s as they could towards her stern on one section, and on the other side, they put as many of the 20s up on her bow to kind of like, one on each corner, if you will.
okay.
One bank of them on each corner of the flight deck, an opposite ends of the flight deck, I'm sorry. And I guess that was just to maybe try and balance out the firepower, I assume, but I don't know.
I
Yeah,
mean,
kind of cool to be able to see the stops. You know,
the rubber there's in better condition than some Orlicans I've seen on museum ships.
right? Yeah, yeah,
That's true.
yeah. And the strap hanging there
Mm.
too. The, the butt strap you'd be strapped into.
They're in really, really good shape. All the
Yeah.
Ehrlichans that you see on this thing are and really on any sunken ship that carried 20 millimeters, they're all really remarkable shape. If anything, a barrel might be missing, but the receiver itself is in good shape.
So did we license these things, or did we just kind of build them and we'll make up the license afterwards? Because I know
Oh
we did that
no.
with the Bofors, right? I think that was sort of a post-war thing. We went back to the Swedes and like, yeah, sorry that we turned your gun into the most widely produced anti-aircraft gun of the war, but we kind of had to. So again, the butt strap there,
Mm.
this little clip. I just kind of wondered if we did the same thing with the Oerlikon.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I know it didn't need quite as much stripping down and redesigning as the Bofors did.
Right. Yeah, obviously the science team was nerding out on the strap there.
Mm.
But it is, again, remarkable that this camera is so good.
Yeah, and to give credit to the ROV pilot for risking getting this up close.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
this
they're doing
close
a
to
lot,
all the Orlicans and stuff, there would be a risk of snagging if he wasn't very careful.
they got pretty good zoom on these cameras, though,
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Ah.
As you see
Right.
on
Yeah.
cue.
Yeah, on cue. And this was happening over and over again. That they were finding pieces of equipment and just, let's go read the manufacturer, zooming right up. There's the boat crane.
Mm.
I love that big gear at the top.
So we're still going down the port side at this point.
Correct.
Hmm.
Yeah, the first day's dive went down the port side, up on the flight deck, and to the port side of the superstructure. The second day's dive went along the starboard side. Well, they started at the stern and they went down the starboard side, went back into the hangar deck, and then went back around towards the bow.
Again, just the detail on the vents here and the passageways, the hatches. It's remarkable.
And there's that weird juxtaposition because that vent that we just zoomed past, it's like that's just some really, really fine metal mesh,
Yes.
perfectly intact.
Yeah.
Right next to a door that's I think that said avgas on it. Uh
Hangar
oh,
space.
hangar space. hangar space. Yes, oh, hangar space. There you go. 153-2. Paintwork's still in good
Yeah,
condition.
And for
again,
the most part, with the exception of the superstructure, her paint is in remarkably good condition.
yeah.
I mean,
Mm,
obviously she's some flaking here and there, but I mean, overall, she still looks pretty good insofar
mm.
as, her colors are concerned.
I'm actually really surprised there's not sort of the marine snow that gradually builds up the seabed. There's not that much that's built up on her exposed areas like the flight deck and so forth.
When you get inside,
50 cal.
you'll see, because everybody's going to want to talk about the
Mm.
car. When you
Yes.
see the vehicle in there, there's a lot of crud,
Mm.
around there. There's a lot of
Here's another
stuff
one of
around
those
it.
50 caliber mounts with the different kind of metal, magnesium or something, and yeah, you can just see the corrosion is just eating it alive. The water jacket, nice shot of that.
Wonder how many of those water jacketed 50 cals are actually still around above the surface.
Yeah,
Not too many. I know that. I know there's at least four because I've seen them,
Hmm.
and there's one that still fires, believe it or not, um, that I know of, and there may be more. I don't know, but there's not too many of them still floating around. No pun intended.
interesting little sort of railing or track down to the left side of the mount there.
5-inch gun.
Yes, sir. And you can see that the shield in front of it has
Mm.
been cut off by salvage crews in preparation to ditch this gun. The situation was on Yorktown that we have this heady list, and when the salvage party gets put back aboard her, her hangar deck is practically down at what had become her water line, and so they want to get rid of as much top weight as possible, and they were going to ditch these 5-inch guns, so they got to cut the gun shields away in front before they can um, torch off the mounts and yeet them over the side too. But
Mhm.
that never happened, obviously, because I-168 took care of matters beforehand. Great shot right down the muzzle of this 5-inch 38 here.
Rifling's all in good condition.
It's amazing, isn't it?
We were saying that when they zoomed in on this, I was listening to it, to the chatter, the radio chatter, and you could hear all the scientists,
Mm.
oohing and eyeing and over the creatures that are living on the barrel of the gun. And I was oohing and eyeing over the fact that I could see the rifling down the barrel. Like, oh man, look at the rifling. You can still see it down there.
Different strokes for different folks.
That's it,
Yeah.
man.
Well,
Yeah, it was
from
a
a
good shot.
scientific standpoint, it is really kind of interesting because, of course, a big metal object like this, but it's got all sorts of lead-based paints and, stuff on
Mm.
it that's pretty toxic. And so, what creatures can adapt to it and actually use the metals in it to sustain themselves? There's just a lot of really interesting, as Seth says, sort of scientific chatter going on about the kind of colonies of sea life that they were seeing around here. We, of course, only care about the 5-inch 38s.
Right. I just care about the guns.
Yeah, another great shot.
I mean, they are right there at the flight deck's edge, too. Those five
Mm.
Yeah,
inchers right there.
it's really cool.
Mhm. So now we're at the very after end of her flight deck, almost at the very, very edge, almost at the very tip. And
And she
you'll
lost a chunk of her flight deck uh, when she rolls over. Some part of it detached and left the ship. So there's a bit on the very very rear portion of the ship that's not there. But
I'm
Got real.
frankly, I'm really not sure what this is. I got to be honest with you. It's,
Mm.
as you said, it's a reel, but a reel for a hose, a reel for a line, a reel for a cable. God knows. But There's several of them there. You can see at least two, if not three, in this frame right here.
Mm.
So I don't know what the heck this is.
They're pretty big as well, considering the size of that ladder next to
Gangway.
them.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're spare arrestor cable reels.
Hmm.
Could be. That's as good a guess as any because the flight deck is directly above you right there.
Mm. And we're at the aft end, which is where you'd need them.
Yeah. Again, you got that sort of railing along the side. It looks like that
Mm.
could be used to move heavy stuff. It could be
Mm.
block and tackle. Don't know what for though. Okay, here we are
There
now on
we
the
go.
fantail. Yeah. You can see the gaussing cables, obviously,
Hmm.
running along the top part of the frame then, and then the number 5 for
And there's
CV-5.
York.
Yes, sir. Isn't that cool? The embossing. I just love the lettering too. It's so 1930s.
There's another shot where they get most of her name in there, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's in this reel, but
Yeah. Well,
but
it was a major bit of work, when they were on the port side of the fantail and we wanted to get to the starboard side of the
Mm.
vehicle and then bring the vehicle all the way out. They got to make up this big lateral move. They got to put it back in again. It was not at all a trivial exercise. So here you can
Interesting.
see right on the fantail mixture of 20 millimeters, and there's a 50 here as well.
Mm.
which is really cool, and I mean, again, getting down to the minutia, but it's cool because we've always assumed that she only had the 20s on her stern, and I remember John, you'd said back when we were doing, I don't know, one of the episodes that they were bolting down whatever they could. If it
Yeah,
goes boom, they're go ahead and pause it here. But if it goes boom, they're going to bolt it down, and that's an example of it because they got two 20s and they got a 50 sandwiched right in between it right there. And that's, we didn't know that. I mean, nobody. If you look at schematics of Yorktown before this dive, we did not know that there were any other anti-aircraft weaponry back there on her stern right here. So what you're looking at there, that net.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm about 99% sure that's the I don't want to get cut in half net for the landing signal officer. That's so if somebody's coming in a little bit too close and he had to take a dive and he didn't want to go swimming,
Mm.
that's the net that he would literally fall into. I think I'm pretty dang sure because
seems
there's
pretty
really
plausible.
yeah, I mean, you're right where this is the LSO station is immediately to your left. So
Yeah.
there's no other reason for that to be there. There were safety nets around her flight deck, like on all American aircraft carriers, but that being right where it is, I'm pretty sure that's what that is the please don't cut me in half net for the
Yeah.
LSO.
I was going to say with those organs, it's interesting actually. Now we've seen quite a few of them. All um, the gun shields are all bent. Most of them
Hmm.
bent right back. I'm presuming that's probably happened from the force of the water as as she's sunk.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's
But
just
you're right, they
interesting.
are kind of at that
Yeah.
rakish angle, right? Yeah, and the camera crew here were like,
Mm.
okay, yeah, this is a net. We want to see every fiber in this net.
Yeah. And again, I mean, it's really interesting because obviously, yeah, you expect a steel ship to still be substantially there in most cases, but then you've got the wood of the deck and this net. This is
Hmm.
organic stuff that on most shipwrecks would be long gone, but pretty much all there.
Yeah, I love the little red dots of the laser rangefinder too.
Yeah.
How low can you go?
How close can you get to it?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, these dudes that were driving this submarine or the ROV rather, were
Mm.
Yeah,
incredibly skilled
they
at what they were
really knew
doing.
their stuff. It's a great team. Okay, so you can see here, this is the nozzle for a fire extinguisher. And Seth actually found in the damage control report that there was a fire here on the fantail, and there's mention of the fact that they put this thing out using fire extinguishers, and here is the fire extinguisher. Again, it's remarkable to me that the ship rolled over completely, and yet this particular fire extinguisher is still on the deck. The line must have got snagged in something, or I don't know, but here it is lying now on the deck on the fantail.
And it's right by the 3 anti-aircraft weapons too. It's laying right there. And those are like a very hard rubber. Like, it's pliable to a degree. Even now you can squeeze it to a degree. So, but I mean, it's remarkably well preserved. It's in almost perfect condition.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, they really did get up close and personal.
Yeah, and so there's the hose leading up to the nozzle. Again, just so cool to be able to see something in the damage control reports and then have it corroborated by this artifact that is still sitting on the ship 80 years later.
There's the name.
Yeah.
Popular hangout spot for the sea life.
Go ahead and pause it here.
Yeah.
You can see if you go back how much of a list she has.
Yes.
Because there's the ocean bottom immediately to the bottom right corner. So she's just kind of laying on her side almost right there.
Yeah, she's a good 20, 30 degrees over to her starboard. Which, on the one hand means that we never will see the torpedo holes from I-168's torpedoes, but we do see the torpedo holes on the port side from Hashimoto's attack.
Might we take a quick break here?
Yep.
If we don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a very weak bladder, so
fair enough.
I'll be right back.
I'll take the opportunity to figure out who was at the front door. Amazon.
I like to say that yeah, I like to say that I have a 1 hour bladder.
Fair enough.
Is John back, or is he?
He's not back yet.
I got you. Oh yeah. So the stuff inside that you're going to see next, of course, is the SPDs plural, and then the car. And we know who flew that SPD that you're about to show. B5 Wilbur Roberts was the guy's name. So we can get into that. Oh, you're back. Okay.
I'm back.
So we can get into that whenever you want to.
Yeah, just give me 2 seconds. I just need to quickly type something.
Had a handful of peanuts too for my little gerbil metabolism.
Yeah, my stomach is growling. It's about another 45 minutes to lunchtime, and it knows. It's well aware.
That question two page back that really quickly. Never mind. I'll just do it myself. Fine.
So I scoured the net to see if I could find a picture of this B5 anywhere that we're about to see the SBD. See if I could
Yeah.
find a picture. Yeah, completely unsuccessful. I have a stockpile of Enterprise images, and I couldn't find her. Couldn't find her in there. I wanted so bad to be able to show that picture of that airplane, but
Right.
alas, it was not to be.
Alas.
Right. Sorry, just
No, you're good.
I took the opportunity to quickly send a very angry message to a Russian copyright troll who's trying to claim one of my pictures of USS Cod. I was like, dude, I took this picture. It doesn't belong to you. Go away.
Go away. I'm actually calling up Enterprise's flight rosters so we can
Mhm.
I can find where's our man here? Wilbur.
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 Yep. All right.
And I can't, his last name, the gunner, radioman gunner Steinman. I want to say it's Edward, but I'm not 100% sure. Do you have that in front of you right now, John?
It's W.B. Steinman.
All right, I'm not even close. All right,
Mm.
fine.
Yeah.
Right. Should I hit play?
Yeah, go
Do
for
it.
it. Yeah, so okay, here we go. This is the money shot,
Mhm.
if you will, that everybody wants to talk about, and for obvious reason. What you're looking at here, this is an SBD. There's no question about it. This is a Dauntless. You can see the dive brakes on the towards the bottom end of the right wing there.
Mhm.
You can see the holes in the dive brakes. This is B5. This is, of course, an SBD from Bombing Squadron 6. Initially, the thoughts were that this was VB5, but that's not the case. Of course, as we know, for Midway, VB5 was reclassified as VS5, but regardless, that's not what this is. This is B5, Baker 5, from Bombing Squadron 6 aboard USS Enterprise. It was flown by a gentleman named Lieutenant Junior Grade Wilbur Roberts and his radioman gunner Steinman. And John, I know you've got some more detailed info. These guys attacked Kaga, but
That's right.
but they
Yeah,
did not
and
hit her,
it's
right?
apparently not. Looks like they may not have. But yeah, this is SBD Bureau number 4581. And yes, this plane was then recovered. It is one of two VB6 Dauntlesses that is actually recovered by Yorktown. They were probably running low on fuel and showed up and look, there's a flight deck. Let's sit down there. So that's why it is on board Yorktown at this point.
Exactly. And if my calculations are correct, I think this is either the last or the second to last SBD to ever land on Yorktown's deck.
Right.
Is Baker 5
So
right
it's
here.
it's either this one or the other VB6,
Right.
which was flown by a guy named Goldsmith, who did hit Kaga. And yeah, Goldsmith came down with his backseater Patterson, and they were also recovered alongside Wilbur Roberts.
I
So-
believe. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so this is in the hangar then.
Yeah,
Correct. Yeah. So they landed these two SBDs. You can pause it here too. I just think this is cool. The way these are marked. You can see the number 5 for Baker 5 right there on the upper side of her wing, right close to the wing root. But these guys landed on Yorktown, as like John was saying, they were looking for any flight deck they could find, and Yorktown was the first one that they did find. And they immediately dropped these guys down in the hangar deck, and there were, as you'll see here in just a second, there were multiple don't lie in the hangar deck of Yorktown here, and these two airplanes are among the several that caught fire when the fire inside the hangar deck went off. I got it here for damage report. Yeah, fires were started in 3 planes on the hangar deck. The 2 damaged planes from Enterprise, of which that is one, and 1 Yorktown plane fueled and armed with a 1,000-pound bomb. Remember that. Lieutenant A.C. Emerson, United States Navy hangar deck officer, released a sprinkler system and water curtains in the 2 after bays and quickly extinguished this fire, which otherwise would have undoubtedly developed into a serious conflagration. So these are 2 combat, or that's 1 combat veteran, SBD that attacked Kaga. That's, the only other combat veteran SBD known to be above water is, of course, 2106 in Pensacola. That was flown by Danny Iverson from VMSB 241.
And is that a hole in the hangar deck just above it, or is that just a artifact of the light?
Are you talking about that aluminum looking thing here on the left?
Yeah, yeah, kind of
That
this.
I think that's another part of an airplane or
Okay.
something of that. Because when the camera zooms out, you're going
Mhm.
to see this. It's just a heap of SBDs
Right.
is what this
Pile.
is. It's just a pile of Dauntless. If you look to your immediate left, and the camera's going to zoom in on it in a second,
Yeah, right.
right there. There's another SBD. This is
Oh yeah,
obviously
there's
not the
the
same one. There's the bomb.
There's the bomb.
oh, there's the bot. Yeah, and
Yes,
there's the
sir.
air brakes.
Yep. And you can see the fin on the bomb, right? Yeah, zooming in.
Yeah.
So cool. Right. And that is live.
Yeah.
No touchy.
Don't get too
Yeah.
close. So that aircraft's been upside down then.
Yes.
And if you look immediately above it, there's another SBD there. So there's at least three here. B5, there's one here with the bomb, and the one above that almost looks like it's kind of melted into it.
Yeah.
Which potentially then could be the other Enterprise one.
It very well could be, but unfortunately we can't see any numerals, anything distinguishing what aircraft. Go ahead and pause it here. What aircraft it is. We can assume, but as they say, you never assume because it makes an ass out of you and me. But
Yeah.
the one with the bomb on there could very well be the one that was armed with a 1,000-pound bomb. That was would have been VS Victor Sierra 5's SBDs that was in the hangar deck that the damage report mentioned. So you're looking down directly into the cockpit of the SBD now. Of course, up forward is the pilot, and just after that is the little ring-looking thing. Yeah, that's where the radioman gunner would sit. And it's not a turret, by definition, but it kind of is because he'd sit in there and he could swirl around like in an office
Swing
chair.
mount.
Exactly, and get his twin 30s that are stowed behind towards the after end of the airplane in like two little folding doors that pop up, and then they're operated by like spring and piston loaded mounts, really, to be able to raise and lower the weapons.
Yeah.
SPD is a cool aircraft, man. It's just so neat. Of course, you
Yeah.
can see another national insignia right here to your left,
Yeah.
and another one even below to the further on the left-hand corner too. All right.
All right.
The thing that made all the news articles.
Oh yeah. Save the best for last, right?
So
what
this
are we looking at then?
It is a 1941 Ford Woody wagon, which is a cool car in and of itself. But this is really neat, and there were a bunch of theories that this was Admiral Fletcher's car, and it most certainly was not. Like John and I said on our episode we did, Fletcher, like all admirals, I'm sure, had an ego, but his wasn't MacArthur-esque. He didn't bring his own car into the hangar deck of Yorktown. There's no need for that malarkey. It's a gopher vehicle is what it is. And go get this guy out of the brig, go bring the beer to the party, that kind of thing. That's exactly what this is. And nothing more. It's nothing. It's hard to say. It's not some sexy kind of super secret air, car. This is strictly a gopher vehicle, and you see that in a minute because you'll see the license plate that says, ship service. So I mean, it's pretty evident what it is, but it's still cool nonetheless.
Seth, you were able to find a picture of one of these sitting on the flight deck on Lexington, right?
Yes, so I did, and I can send that to you guys later. I'm going to send it to you, John. I have an archival film reel of USS Lexington CV-2 leaving Hunters Point, passing underneath the Golden Gate Bridge in late October, early November 1941. And it's color too, which is cool because she's as blue can be. No doubt it's Lex. And on her flight deck is what appears to be it's definitely a car. There you go, ship
Yep.
service. It appears to be the same type of vehicle, a
Yep.
1941 Ford Woody wagon. I don't know if the Navy had a small contract for these vehicles or if it's just, coincident. Go ahead and pause it here too. Or if it's just coincidence that there just happen to be two of these same type of vehicles, on two American aircraft carriers within a relatively short amount of time. But they're
Yeah.
not painted Navy colors or anything like that. You can
No,
definitely see the
it's
wooden panels.
right. Yeah, it's just kind of a cool image, of Yorktown mooring, and then that enormous crane that we saw at the aft end of the superstructure. They bring the Woody up on the flight deck, and I don't know how they secure it, but yoink and put it down on the dock, and yeah, go down and go fetch us some sulfa drugs from the hospital, or yeah, as you say,
Yeah,
Seth, go get the beer.
yeah, yeah. And
Right.
that's exactly what it would have been used for. Did Fletcher ride in the vehicle? Maybe. Did Captain Buckmaster ride in the vehicle? Probably. Yeah, but and I say, go get the beer, and I'm not being, sarcastic. I'm being dead serious, because those ships service vehicles like that. Squadrons had their own vehicles often. That's exactly what they were used for. Go get sailors out of the brig, go get the beer for the beer bash, and that kind of thing. Like, honest to God, that's what they were used for.
Yeah.
So this is cool. And we're doing some deduction here, but there's no question what this is. This is the wing of a Wildcat, of an F4F, and a battle damaged one too. You can see, the
Shrapnel holes.
holes, and there's shrapnel holes all over the dang thing, frankly. And it's definitely a Wildcat because of those little rectangular slots right there, right
Mm-hmm.
above your cursor. Those are the ejection points for the 50 cal brass.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question that it's a fighter's wing. And we say that it probably is Tom Cheek's aircraft. And I say this because of two things. One, there's archival footage of Cheek landing his Wildcat. He was an NAP, landing his Wildcat on the flight deck that Bill Roy shot earlier that day on June the 4th. And he has a bad landing and he goes, right
Head over
upside down and
tails.
goes, yep, kerplunk on the flight deck. And he was okay, and he got out of there. And like John says, he lived to be, an old man.
Yeah, he
But
was one of the last remaining Midway survivors and was a member of the Midway Roundtable for years and years. And I corresponded with him. I'm sure you knew him better than I did, Seth.
yeah, he was a super, super neat guy. Very, very soft-spoken, gentle individual, as most of them were. And the image, if you recall, we were talking about the mural.
Mm-hmm.
The archival image of that mural, in the foreground of that very same image is Tom Cheek's F4F still upside down, with
Right.
the cockpit laying on like a cradle of some sorts with wheels on it. I guess so they just hoisted it up, put it on that, rolled it to the elevator, brought it down, and there it sits. But it had battle damage on it, so one can reasonably assume that this is the same portion of the same aircraft. There's no record of an F4F catching fire in her hangar when the bomb went off. Of course, that's not to say that it didn't happen, but Cheek's F4F was most certainly in the hangar deck when Yorktown went down, and one can reasonably assume that this is probably that same aircraft.
Yeah.
So
Super,
would this
super
be an
interesting.
F4, F3 because you've just got the two ejection ports?
I guess
Because
so.
the four has six guns. So I'm just
Right.
thinking it's like either there should be a third ejection port if it was a four, or I don't know, maybe they trunked two ejection ports into one.
Mhm.
I don't think so. I don't think they would have done that. Likely
Yeah.
jams and stoppages in there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact the wing is splayed
Good
out like
catch.
that probably suggests it's three because the four had the folding wings.
There you go.
Right.
There
There
you
you
go.
are. This is why we like hanging with other nerds, because the collective nerdery.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just thought this was really neat because
it is. It
this is
is
a
cool.
tangible touch to somebody that we
Right.
knew,
Yeah.
or at least we think it's a tangible touch to somebody we
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah. And that footage of him crunching that thing really is pretty dramatic.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, he's
Yeah.
lucky he walked away from that. He, honest to
Yeah,
God,
he
because I
is.
mean, it just goes per plow right on the flight on the canopy. So
Okay,
yeah.
so this was a moment. We're now back up on the deck edge galleries, and there's this firefighting pump here. And again, the camera was able to zoom in so tight that you could actually read the manufacturer's name off of the dial here, the pressure gauge. American, I can't. Chuck Haberline knew it right off the top. He said, "Oh yeah, those guys they build fire engines," and so obviously they had a contract with the Navy to provide firefighting equipment as well. But again, just blow away camera work here that we could actually get in and read the manufacturer's name. And I love this too, just because again, for the tangible connection with American damage control, which is so damn good in this war, and that we could find evidence of it all over these ships. That firefighting, canister down on the stern, and then the pump here on the gallery edge. Maybe those gas canisters that held CO2, we don't know, but we were built to do damage control. And here we have the bomb hole in the flight deck that was made by Nakazawa's bomb hit. And this is the one that puts paid to the boiler uptakes. Probably also the one, shrapnel from this also started the fire in the stern portion of the hangar deck as well. And of course, there are these famous images of us, as Seth says, plating this thing over and bonking it with hammers and whatnot, doing whatever we can to get the carrier back into commission.
That's a big hole too, man.
That's a pretty big hole.
That's a big damn hole.
Yeah. The tie-down strips just basically minced.
It's interesting that everything's bent downwards. So at that point, so this is basically the impact of the bomb smashing through on its way further down.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And again, more evidence of the fact that, she had her garage doors open in her hangar deck because that pressure went out and not up.
And now here we are coming up the starboard side of the ship and going
1.1.
Yeah, it's that same 1.1 actually. That is mount number 4.
Just from a different angle.
Yep, where that terrible carnage took place.
Yeah, I think you're right about those shrapnel holes because there's not really similar damage on this side.
Yep, and that makes sense. Because the hit was slightly inboard. Here's the crane.
Yeah, the ladder on the crane's been ripped off.
Right, and you can see that's mount number 3 that is lying right underneath the crane.
Stopped the crane there.
Yep.
Yeah, look, there's some more shrapnel along this side.
Yep. Yeah, because what did you say, Seth? 4 guys were killed in that mount as well, and a bunch injured.
4 men were, I'm sorry, 5 men were killed there. 5 men were killed there, and 14 wounded right there. Yeah.
Some of them quite badly, I'm sure.
I would imagine so, yes.
Yeah.
That's the last bit in our highlights reel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. There's a lot more where that came from.
Yeah.
9 hours of it.
Is there anywhere where people can go and trawl through the rest of it if they want to?
There is. If you go where, Noah's, it's called Okeanos Redux. Okeanos Redux. And it's on YouTube. And the uncut footage is there. And you can hear the radio chatter pretty clear. Well, I say pretty clear. You should have earbuds or earphones in, but you can hear it. You can decipher what they're talking about. And you can hear the fellow nerds, dorking out on the graining of the Douglas fur flight deck and everything else. But
and the it's
all there.
And,
I'll stick a link to that in the video description below for everybody who wants to go and have a look.
Yeah. Right. I mean, once again, that's one One of the advantages of having a government vessel that is involved in hard science is all that stuff then becomes public domain. So pretty cool. Anyway.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, thank you very
Thanks.
much for
Yeah.
both John and Seth for showing up and walking us through some of the highlights of the latest Yorktown dive. It's been extremely interesting, actually.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Yeah, good stuff. And hopefully, you know, one of these days they'll go back and find, hear you, and soar you. That's what I want. You know, so
that would be super cool. That would be super cool. Yeah, looking at this stuff never gets old. So no, anytime.
Thank you. So yeah, obviously go and check out the Unauthorized History of the Pacific War. It's that's Seth and John now.
John now.
Pick up a copy of Shattered Sword if you don't already have one. Look out for pre-orders for 1942 when it comes out.
It is being edited at this very moment.
Excellent.
Yeah, my guy in New York, Timothy Bent, is working on it. So, and I will be busily laying it out, I would assume, at the end of this calendar year for release in late first or early second quarter of 2026. That's the game plan.
Cool.
So,
and anything you'd like to promote, Seth, while you're here?
No.
Apart from the podcast, go watch the
not
podcast.
A day job.
There's an episode or two with me in it somewhere in all that playlist.
There's one on the USS Tang we did is Richard O'Kane in the USS Tang, and then if I remember correctly, we did. There was another one we did. The cruiser battles. Was it Cape St. George or Vela La Vela? If I remember correctly.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely have to get you back on. We need to talk about some. I'll talk about some British Pacific Fleet here soon.
Oh yeah, that's always fun.
That'd be cool.
How quickly can you break a sea fire?
Well, yeah, we're going to be redoing a number of the early war episodes, and I personally am just fascinated by the Malayan campaign and that sort of thing. And there's plenty of butchery of Allied naval hardware to be gone through in that early portion of the war. So yeah, I have to drag you out of your lair.
So many thanks once again to John and Seth for this just over hour and a half we spent touring Yorktown CV-5 once again. Links to the full video, etc., all in the video description below. And, well, hope you've enjoyed this and hope to see you again in another video sometime soon. Thanks very much.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment on the pinned post for dry dock questions.